Hello everyone, I'm Dan the Cineman and welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be discussing Josh Safdie's very late 2025 release, Marty Supreme, featuring Timothée Chalamet, Gwyneth Paltrow, Odessa Azion and my favourite guy on the planet, despite him not knowing I exist, Tyler the Creator. Following the release of Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, Marty Supreme was easily my second most anticipated film of 2025. The fact that the release date was so late in the year did make me upset, but it was definitely worth the wait. As soon as I saw the first post, I had this in my Letterboxd watch list, and I absolutely loved it. For those of you who haven't seen my last video, the format that I'm going to use for these reviews is I'm going to do a spoiler-free section for those people who haven't had the chance to go and see this in the cinemas yet or wasn't sure if it would be worth it. I do believe there is a few days left of the theatrical window for Marty Supreme. I'm not sure exactly how many, but yeah, if you've been umming and ahhing and want to go and catch it on one of the last screenings, the spoiler-free section is for you. And then I'm going to do a spoiler full section for those of you who have watched the film and want to know, different things that I picked up on. Maybe they were the same as you, maybe they were different to you. If I thought it was as good as you thought, if you thought it was better than I did, or if I thought it was better than you did. So yeah, with that being said, let's get into my spoiler-free and spoiler-full thoughts on Marty Supreme. Quick disclaimer, I do not, nor do I claim to own any pictures used in this video. I will be giving credit to the owner in the bottom section of the video. I will try to use images that are in the public domain as much as possible, but where that's not possible, I'll give credit where credit is due. Okay, my spoiler-free thoughts on Josh Safdie's Marty Supreme 2025. I absolutely loved it. I went to see it twice in the cinemas, one with one of my best friends, James, and then I had to take my dad to go and see it because I knew that he'd love it as well. And for me, that's one of the biggest compliments I can give a film is when I really want to go and experience it again on the big screen. So, I go out of my way and I pay again to see the same film again just because it was so fantastic. At the minute, I would say it's my third favourite release from 2025 from the ones that I've seen, and it's in excellent company, with the top spot going to Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, and then the second spot going to Ryan Coogler's fantastic Sinners. Marty Supreme sits just under Sinners for me. I actually rewatched Sinners last night before the making of this video for some reason and decided that, yeah, that was actually the second spot for me, and Marty Supreme is at third, which is by no means a shortcoming. I still gave it a 5-star, and here's my Letterboxd reviews. So after my first viewing, I said, what a monumental filmmaking achievement by all involved. Had all the signature Safdie stamps of excellence, ridiculously charismatic hustler in a sweaty palm-inducing, tense urban odyssey. Timmy Zosca will do all the talking about his performance that I could ever hope to, although I will do some in this video. Seeing my favourite musician on the planet and the white boy of the year share the screen with so much chemistry was so surreal. What a year for cinema. And I gave it 5 stars. On my second viewing with my dad, I gave it 5 stars again, and I said every character is so unlikable, it's so good. Soundtrack is absolutely biblical. The shot of Marty in the military plane amongst the soldiers, possibly my favourite of the year. My fave Safdie entry for sure, Uncut Gems rewatch pending. I just quickly want to build on that last sentence from my first review where I said what a year for cinema. I do think 2025 was absolutely exceptional. I mean, 3 films I gave 5 stars. I gave a few 4.5s. I think it was, for me, I'm not sure if this is a hot take. I think it's definitely the best year for cinema in the 20s that we've had so far. I think 2023 was very good with entries like Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Across the Spider-Verse, Poor Things. I do think 2025 just tops it. Yeah, absolutely fantastic, and just great to see the medium that we love so much thriving, really. Especially in this, post-COVID and also post-writer strikes era, I think it's interesting to see the knock-on effects. Timothée Chalamet mentioned in the generational press run that he had for this film about how when he was shooting for Dune Part 2, he was playing ping pong, which, they must have shot that years ago. So it's interesting to see it's all come around full circle, and yeah, that the medium is alive and well. I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but just to pick up on the press run comment, I mean, this guy is an absolute marketing dream in himself. You know, the SD Kid remix, building on the rumors that they're the same person, and then not to mention the fact that he name dropped my town, you know, my place of birth, Wrexham. It was just so surreal. You know, the reveal of the skinhead, the blimp. It was just all absolutely fantastic, and it's, you know, I feel like it's made the film more of an event rather than just a movie. We're going to continue the Timothée Chalamet glaze because there are other aspects to this film that made it so good, but the main driving force is Timothée Chalamet's performance. I don't think there's much that I can say that hasn't already been said, and like I pointed to on my Letterboxd review, that won't be said by his Oscar win that I believe he's nailed to get. But yeah, it was just absolutely brilliant. He brought such a charisma to the role. I feel like we know the Safdie formula by now. You know, it's always a heavy burden on the lead to bring the charisma, as it's normally a hustler-based individual like Marty. So yeah, he really had the weight of the film on his shoulders here, and he absolutely delivered. Every frame he was in, I ate that shit up. My sister Sophie's Letterboxd review is here. She just said 4 stars and then commented, "I would fall for him." Me too, Sophie. It clearly runs in the Henny genes. As I said, there are other aspects that made this film so enjoyable for me, one of them being Josh Safdie's direction. We know the Safdie brothers formula, like I said previously. I wasn't sure how this would translate after they'd split off, but I think Josh Safdie really nails it here. They've got such, you know, that vision. I have watched Uncut Gems and Good Time, and this does feel like a spiritual successor. Almost feels like that's like the Hustler trilogy of theirs. This definitely takes the cake for me in terms of the ones that I've seen of theirs. I think this is their best work. I think his writing as well was fantastic. You know, the dialogue is so sharp, so quick. Marty is just, you know, an absolute asshole, like I said in my second review. But I do still find myself, you know, amazed by what he's doing, even though I know that he's doing the wrong thing. It's just, again, part and parcel of Safdie's amazing writing and Chalamet's just incredible performance. I said in my last video, I'm a big fan of, you know, original scores and soundtracks, and it's absolutely fantastic here. The music just transcends some of the scenes. Daniel Lopatin's score is absolutely brilliant. I've been listening to it a lot since I first saw the film, especially in the period between my first and second viewing, which I tend to do when I like a film so much, you know, I want to go and see it again. I like to isolate the soundtrack and just listening to it by itself if it left an impression with me after first viewing, and then on second viewing it means that much more to me when I hear the songs that, you know, I like the most and how they're used in the scenes to elevate the scene and enhance the performances like they are so well here. The ping pong scenes themselves are absolutely fantastic. The camera work is brilliant. You know, the comparisons to Challengers are not unfounded. You really can see the parallels. Shot very similarly, and it's really nice to know that it's actually Timothée Chalamet playing ping pong there. You know, he practiced for years and years on the sets of different movies, like I alluded to before. Just adds to that realism, and I guess gets you more involved in Marty's character because you know that it's actually him playing, and you know you're seeing him pursue his dream, and it's actually him, not, you know, a double or CG or anything like that. To finish off my spoiler-free review, definitely go and see this film. I do think you'd get something out of it. If you're a sports fan, you'll enjoy the ping pong. If you're a Safdie fan, you'll enjoy the absolute heart attack, sweaty palm-inducing movie that this is. If you're a Timothée Chalamet fan like me, you'll definitely get some enjoyment out of this film, or I got enjoyment from all 3 of those aspects. So yeah, if you can, I know it's towards the end of its theatrical release now, but if you do get the chance, definitely check this out. Okay, my spoiler full thoughts on Marty Supreme. That stuff was absolutely crazy. It's an absolute heart attack. Something happens, then something happens, then something happens. It is a little bit hard to zone in at times, but I absolutely loved it. You know, if you are familiar with the Safdie brothers work, you know what to expect, but I do think it turns the dial up to 100 here. It just keeps going, and for me, I do feel like it kept getting better and better. I do feel it peaks at some point in the second act while Marty's trying to get to Japan, while we see him hustling, while we see him try to achieve his dream, and where he'll do absolutely anything. And that absolute breakdown of his resolve when he, resorts to going back to Rockwell and putting himself in the palm of Rockwell's hand and saying, "I'll do anything." I've seen people say that they felt the lack of stakes for the last game, sort of got rid of any emotional attachment they had to the climax. I definitely don't agree. I think this is literally the end product of everything we've seen him do. It's to get to this point. It means absolutely everything to him. And the way it's filmed and the way it's performed by both characters, I think that comes across. I do feel the emotional weight of that climax is pushed out to us, and we are made to feel like this is it. This is what it all comes down to. And yeah, I really enjoyed the final ping pong battle. The scene with the tub falling is, the catalyst for when shit really hits the fan, all the way through that scene with the hustling at the bowling alley up until the gas station fire. You're just like, oh my god, when is this going to stop? When's it going to pause for a breath? But then you get that fantastic scene in amongst the chaos with Tyler and Marty when they're singing and they get out of the cab and dance alongside it. I do think it balances the chaos with the moments of calm and beauty like that. Just touching on Tyler's performance, I was absolutely blown away. And despite, the chaotic nature and the unpredictability of the film, I actually do think Tyler's performance for me was the surprise of the film, a pleasant surprise. I knew he was going to be in it, but I was coming into this thinking if he's, average, I can excuse that because this is his first ever foray into the medium. But oh my God, he was brilliant, and I would definitely see him again in another film, hopefully with Timothy Chalamet again, as they have such great chemistry, especially in that scene where they, dance outside the cab and they're singing. That was a joy to watch, really was. The scene where they go back to the house with the dog and the gangster gets shot through the window. Oh my God. That is one of the best jump scares I've seen for a long, long time. And obviously it's a crazy and chaotic film, but I didn't expect there to be a jump scare like that. It really came out of the blue. It reminded me of another one of my favorite jump scares of all time from Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. It's a brilliant film that you should definitely check out if you can, and I won't spoil the jump scare there, but it did remind me of that. Similar vibes, comes out of nowhere, absolutely knocks you for six. It was a great reaction in my theatre the first time I went. Everyone just jumped out their skin, and it was, just brilliant. Very well done by Safdie and also the cinematographer. In this film is one of my favourite little subtle character moments of recent memory. It's from Marty in the first tournament that we see him play in. It's in the semi-final, I think it is, against Kletsky. And it comes just after they have that round of trick shots to get the crowd on their feet, when Marty blows the ping pong in the air and stuff like that, the underleg shots. It's after this. And it's when Kletsky knows the game is done, so he serves up Marty an easy return, and Timothy Chalamet lets out a little laugh just before he hits the game-winning shot, as if, to thank Kletsky for what he did, as if, it's almost relief because that long ordeal's finished. It fills me with happiness because at that point we don't know what a asshole Timothy Chalamet's character, Marty Mauser, is, and, at that point you are rooting for him. And yeah, I just love that little, it possibly an improvisation from Timothy Chalamet. I'd have to see the script, when that gets released, or if it has already been, I'll have to check that out because I absolutely loved that. And it was one of my favorite little quirks of his performance for me, and something that I picked up on and then loved again on my second viewing. It's been interesting and a bit scary to see the almost Fight Club-esque movement that's been going on with younger men online after the release of this film and after they've been to see it. They're identifying with Marty and his struggle to reach his dream at no matter the cost, and they're sort of seeing him as that role model despite the flaws that Josh Safdie and Timothy Chalamet, present in the film. And I think that is a little bit worrying. Younger men taking the wrong message from this film. I don't necessarily think that that's what the film portrays, although I have seen some people criticize it in that way. But I do think Safdie presents it in a way that, pursuing your dream at all cost is not the way to go, and you will sort of cause frail relationships in your life because of that. I've seen people criticize the fact that Marty gets that sort of redemption in the end, when he just comes back from the tournament and claims his child. And I do understand that, but I think it was done in such a way that made me feel like he did almost deserve that moment. Obviously he's been a terrible person, and who knows how good of a father he's going to be, but we've just seen him literally go through hell and back. It was almost nice to see him have a moment of calm, but I do understand, he is such a prick that maybe he didn't deserve such a nice moment. However, the Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World needle drop was absolutely insane and made the whole scene for me. I did find myself almost welling up. Just, that instrumental at the beginning when it rolls in and Marty starts crying. I was, for some reason, again, despite knowing how unrelatable he is to me, I was right there with him in that scene. I guess that's the power of cinema, despite us seeing how awful this guy's been to pretty much everyone in his life. When we see him have this moment of tranquility, I was right there with him. So yeah, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. As unpredictable and crazy as this film was, there was one thing that really stood out in terms of didn't quite fit with the rest, and it was that Rockwell mini vampire monologue. When I heard it for the first time, I was thinking, where is this going? But even the fact that it led to nowhere, I still thought it had its place in the film. It's just Kevin O'Leary saying that his character has been around the block. He's seen little punks like Marty before, and he knows that he's going to come out on top. I just thought that was a crazy addition, but yeah, I thought it worked really well. And I've seen people say, I'll have to try and find the source, that the original ending was actually he was going to bite Marty in the neck, and apparently they even made a prosthetic for Timothée Chalamet's neck for that to happen. Maybe that would have been a little bit too crazy even for a film like this, but yeah, really interesting addition. It also ties in with the soundtrack that I mentioned before, Daniel Lopatin's soundtrack. There's one song on there called Vampire's Castle, and I believe it plays when Marty goes into the after party of Kay's play and goes to find Kay and ask her for that next necklace after she gave the previous one away. Obviously, he's sort of entering the vampire's lair, and then yeah, it ties in with the Kevin O'Leary's admission. It's also very vampiric if you listen to it on its own. It doesn't match the sort of musical themes that the rest of the score does. It very much stands out on its own, and I guess it nails home that point. Goes hand in hand with the little vampire point, and yeah, just a little random quirk that I really enjoyed and really stood out for me. Odessa Zion, as well as having a fantastic name, by the way. I hope this film really pushes her on to stardom. I thought she was brilliant. The twist of hers when Marty wipes away the makeup of the black eye, I thought was really good, and I thought her performance added to that. When she was hustling herself to try and help Marty pursue his dream, despite him obviously using her and being a terrible would-be father, I think she portrayed it all very well, and I can't wait to see what she does next. To wrap up my thoughts on Marty Supreme, yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Like I said, third favourite film of the year for me. If there's interest, I'll start doing my rankings, such as top films 2025 and stuff like that. But for now, I'll stick to the individual film reviews. And yeah, Josh Safdie debut, fantastic. I think it'll be interesting to see where the Safdie bros' respective careers go, because Benny Safdie's directorial debut for me was nowhere near as good as Josh Safdie's. Very different source material, obviously, and Benny Safdie has out of nowhere become quite a valid actor and one that's clearly loved by Christopher Nolan. He's brilliant in Oppenheimer, and he looks to be very scary as Agamemnon in The Odyssey, in that crazy cool black armor that I love. So yeah, maybe Josh can direct Benny down the line, which would be crazy. But yeah, to wrap up, I would definitely recommend if you could catch us in the cinema during the last few days of its theatrical run. I think it was brilliant, and I think everyone would get something out of it. Like I said, if you're a sports fan, if you're a Safdie fan, even if you're a little Timothée Chalamet glazer like me, there's something in this for you. If you see this video too late and you think, oh, Dan the Cineman told me to go and see this in the cinema, but now it's out the cinema, I would recommend buying the Blu-ray when you can. I don't want to be too preachy, but I am a big believer in supporting physical media so that it never goes away. You know, not everything should be digital. I think that's a little bit of a scary future. I like to sometimes hold things in my hand and appreciate them. Plus, with physical media, you often get so much more, you know, special features, deleted scenes, etc., etc. So yeah, if you don't catch it in the cinema, I would recommend buying the Blu-ray. I'm definitely going to. And yeah, I've been Dan the Cineman. See you at the movies. Thanks for listening.